When you click Pay in 4 at checkout and that $200 jacket suddenly becomes just $50, you're part of a $500 billion debt bubble that's starting to crack. The stores you shop at are seeing their profit margin shrink.
Never pay your debts. Never pay off your credit cards. Never answer the phone calls. Never answer the letters. If they absolutely force you to, take out a second line of credit to pay off the first line of credit, and then never receive the phone calls from the second guys either. It's magic. It's the infinite magic money glitch. My mom used it. And by the way, I don't view this as unethical or immoral at all, because the companies that do this are existing in what I think to be a completely immoral ability to effectively exercise usury over everybody in the population. They're giving people loans they know they can't pay back. They're writing the loans off as losses on their taxes. They're not even losing money. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, they're scammers to begin with.
That's a hidden tax on every single thing you buy. You should stop calling that a free payment plan because everyone's paying for it. One of the key BNPL players lost $99 million last quarter. Another one burned through $1.3 million every single day last year. 3 other companies collapsed in the last year. OpenPay left merchants with $18.2 million in losses. Laybuy's failure hit 4,200 businesses.
Jesus.
When Kiwi Bank faced $30 million in exposure from just one BNPL company.
They
realized this isn't sustainable. The way you pay for everything
BNPL is buy now, pay later, by the way.
About to dramatically change, because what started as a clever way to afford things has become a financial...
It's not a clever way to afford things. It was never a clever way to afford things. It was a clever way to make stupid people that are bad with money make different situations for themselves that put them in debt. Once you understand that a lot of the financial systems that people use, especially companies like Visa and MasterCard, the way that they make money is if you're stupid. That's it.
Time bomb, and you need to understand it before it explodes. Buy now, pay later didn't appear by accident. It emerged from a perfect storm of financial crisis, technology, and changing consumer behavior. The 2008 financial crisis fundamentally changed how banks viewed consumer credit. Credit card approvals plummeted. Young adults watched their parents drown in 29% APR credit card debt.
That was my mom. She got away with it.
But the real accelerant came in 2020. The pandemic shifted the world online overnight. E-commerce jumped 5 years forward in 3 months. Everyone was shopping from home, flush with stimulus money. But psychologically scarred by uncertainty, BNPL was perfectly positioned.
Well, there's also another component that impulse buying actually goes up in times of crisis and in recessions. So you even have a psychological element of this that's an agitator that further makes this like paradigm even more common.
Pandemic didn't create the pressure.
It's dopamine source, yeah.
When rent goes up 20%, but salaries rise 3%, people get desperate. 64% of Americans now live paycheck to paycheck.
You can see why. This is the reason why people like Nick have audiences now. By the way, going back to what I was just talking about earlier, this is the reason why. It's these numbers are the real reason why. They're absolutely, unequivocally, 100% fucked.
BNPL didn't create this squeeze, it exploited it.
Yes,
Swedish company Klarna launched in 2005, but remained small until these forces converged. Then everything changed. In the US alone, BNPL volume exploded from $2 billion in 2019 to $24 billion in
That's bad. It's getting worse. The cost of tomatoes. Yeah, money are created through loans, so money is debt. Interest make it grow up, so it's tied up as debt saturation. This will mathematically crash eventually. You're talking about like fractional reserve banking. Yeah, that's something that's very common. A lot of people have been talking about that for years. But I don't think that you need to go into like deep economic theory to understand that a bunch of people that are, and this is the other big issue, is that you have people that are in high school that are learning about dividing fractions, but they don't understand what an interest rate is. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to go full tinfoil hat here. I think that's working as intended. And that's a big problem. You know how I always said that they were trying to farm out a bunch of people and turn all of the population into batteries? In an abstract way, debt kind of does that.
An 1,100% increase. In just 2 years, the industry grew 12 times larger. That's not organic growth, that's a gold rush. When you buy now, pay later, you're not the customer, you're the product.
That's right.
BNPL companies are selling more sales, and it's delivered to merchants.
This guy's actually super fucking based. Like, this is such a good video.
6% premium. The psychology was brilliant. Traditional
this guy
credit
has
cards remind
8,000
you of
subs.
debt with every monthly statement.
I'm gonna link you guys a video
see
at the
that
end of
balance.
this. This
you
is really
feel
good.
that weight. BNPL reframed the narrative. This wasn't debt, it was smart budgeting. The numbers prove the psychological shift worked. BNPL increases average order values by 30%.
Because people are more willing to spend money that they don't have to think about right now. People just want instant gratification. You saw, like, you know, for example, do you remember like all those girls on like that fucking on the Caleb Hammer show, like the fucking financial audit? Oh, well, I had to do it. It just had to satisfy my inner child, and it would make me happy. And I needed something special. I just needed this. I needed this. So you have this thing where media, social media, messaging, celebrities, they keep you in this constant state of like a just continual stress, worry, anxiety. And they do this because it exists inside of an ecosystem. And that ecosystem also gets you to spend money compulsively. That's how it happens.
And nearly a third more just because they can
by
split
design,
the
it
payments.
is.
For retailers, seems simple. Pay 6% in
just
fees,
makes sense.
get 30 more revenue. What could go wrong? Everything. The business model had one fatal flaw. BNPL companies make zero money from consumers who pay on time.
They make no money from consumers that pay on time. But then why is the company worth $45 billion? Oh, no. Now it's only at 14. So wait a minute. So if they don't make any money from people that pay on time, then why are they worth $14 billion? I have no idea. Maybe donations.
Their entire revenue depends on two sources: merchant fees and late payment penalties. Klarna alone collected $254 million in reminder fees last year. This creates a perverse incentive. BNPL companies need you to use their service repeatedly, but they also profit when you fail. They've built a business model around that, and the psychology is brilliant.
Their entire business model is their success business use case is usury.
Traditional credit cards remind you of debt with every monthly statement. You see that balance?
There it is.
You feel that weight.
If you think this is bad, you haven't gotten to the intergalactic dick-sucking garbage bullshit fucking interplanetary alignment dildo fucking you in the ass that having a low balance in your bank account costs you money. It costs you money to have a certain amount of money in the bank because you don't have enough money, and so they're charging you money because you don't have enough money. It's expensive to be poor. It's really bad. Nobody talks about this, and this is the problem, is because a lot of people don't fucking know it.
By 2021, the average BNPL user had accounts with multiple providers. The stage was set for what researchers now call the normalization of continuous debt.
That's what I said, bro. Everybody's a battery now.
But you're not budgeting, you're being programmed.
Isn't that crazy? Think about that.
Scientists have scanned people's brains while shopping. When you see a $100 price tag, your brain's pain center, the insula, lights up like you're experiencing physical pain. But show that same brain $25 today, the pain vanishes. BNPL companies literally hack your neurological response to spending. This is temporal discounting.
I tell you, bro, I tell you, I fucking spend $25 on something that better be good. I spend $100 on something that better be good. Like, I still, like, in my mind, like, my dad's the same way, is that, like, I grow up, like, I base everything off of what my allowance was in high school. Like, every dollar amount is based off of that frame of reference.
Your brain,
it's not complicated, right? They give you a lower number. Like, you don't need to get into the fucking brain magic of this. yeah, if you give people a lower number, they're going to buy it more because they're not going to notice that you pay it off later on. You don't need brain magic
future
for that.
payments like they're someone else's problem. For thousands of years, humans survived by prioritizing immediate needs over future ones. BNPL exploits this ancient wiring. The companies understand this psychology perfectly.
I'm not sure if I agree with that. Evolutionary analysis. Because I think that you could clearly make arguments against that for, like, example, like storing things for winter, building houses ahead of time, etc. I don't necessarily know if you can go that deep into the evolutionary pipeline, but I don't think that you really need to, because you're still exploiting people's psychology, even if it's not based off of an evolutionary trait.
Nope. They're selling psychological permission to overspend. And every company wants in, right? Traditional finance lets you borrow to buy a car. BNPL's innovation was to let you borrow to buy a burrito. Now,
if you're borrowing money to buy a burrito, you got people. This is the thing that a lot of conservatives don't understand. Why is it that everybody wants communism? Because they're buying burritos on a payment plan. Okay? If you're buying a burrito on a payment plan, you're probably going to look at something like Karl Marx and say, yeah, it sounds like a great idea, because anything's better than this shit. Anybody who's confused by why a lot of young people are turning towards socialism and communism is sheltered and delusional.
You're subscriptionifying your entire life without realizing it. That jacket isn't just a purchase anymore. It's a monthly service.
Burrito
your
on
whole
finance.
wardrobe becomes Netflix. Each payment plan adds another recurring charge to your mental load. Now here's where it gets dark. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau data shows 43% of BNPL users have missed payments.
Don't they have some sort of, like, I mean, I understand that each adult should be able to enter into the contract that they want. But at the same point, whenever you're constantly giving out contracts to people and you're not vetting them at all to whether they're able to make payments or not, at what point is this effectively just something that is abusive and manipulative? It should be illegal. I think that there needs to be more checks and more levels of accountability for this. Like, this is something, like, my understanding is in, like, at least like in Islam, for example, like, isn't having, like, interest for the most part illegal? I'm pretty sure it is.
Nearly half of everyone using BNPL has already failed to pay on time. 1 in 3 paid late in the past year. Among those who use multiple BNPL services, the rates are even higher. When payments fail, the cascade begins. You miss one $40 payment, the app tries again. Your account overdraws. That's a $35 bank.
See, this is, bro, this is, you know what this reminds me of whenever you start losing money? It's like when somebody wins a slot machine. And you see, like, there's a 4x and then a 20x and then like a 5x and there's a plus 50 and then there's a minus, 10. It's like, oh, it's too bad. And then like a plus 500 and then before you know it, you're just fucked. Yeah, you're death spiraling. Exactly. Yeah, this is the reason why, by the way, I have zero moral reservations. I have no debt in my life. I have never had debt in my life. I was very lucky that, my dad bought me my first car, so I didn't have to go into debt for that. And for other words, like, I never really have had debt. And I do not take on debt for any reason. I understand some people, and I get the way that guys, like, they use debt and they leverage it as an asset, and then they use that to get more loans in order to buy stuff. Like, I understand this grift, but I don't want to be a part of it. It's not something that I just think it's clever abuse of game mechanics, and it shouldn't exist that way at all. In my opinion, I think if you're going into debt for, I don't know. I don't think I can even really say this, right? Because everybody's situation's different. But like, in a general sense, do the most that you can to avoid going into debt for anything other than a car, a house, or medical bills. Anything else besides that, try your absolute best not to go into debt for it. And student loan debt. I think that's another one, right? You kind of have to have that. But I mean, I can't really, I know everybody, obviously. It's like, I can say that, but it's easy to say that. It's harder to do it.
Now you're $83 in the hole from a $40 payment.
For 1 month.
One mistake becomes a financial avalanche. When payments fail, the cascade begins. But the real trap is loan stacking. The data is staggering. 60% of BNPL users juggle multiple active payment plans. Nearly a third, 32%, manage 3.
Here's another really, really sad reality. When Riot introduced the $500 Faker bundle, one of the Riot third-party point stores said that 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 people were buying the $500 video game skin bundle on credit and on a payment plan. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the guy that owned the website was like, stop doing this. Stop it. You don't have the money for this. But they can't stop. That's fine, though. It's not. I refuse to believe that people are that retarded. Okay, we'll go raid in Classic WoW. Come back to me in like 1 day. Your entire worldview will be different. If you ever have hope for the human race, do Molten Core. It'll be gone. That'll be it.
It's a mental juggling act. It's designed to fail. The most alarming trend shows how far it got. BNPL for necessities.
That's really
1 in 6 users, 16%, now finance food delivery. Klarna's partner
16% of people are financing food delivery. This is like 2 different levels of abstraction beyond what was existing in like 2005. We used to not have food delivery, and we used to not have financing food delivery. This is really bad.
Means you can split a $15 burrito into 4 payments of
4 payments of $3.75 for a $15 burrito. Oh God, no. Bro, this is so bad. This is
We're
so bad.
microfinancing lunch.
Microfinancing. That's a word that shouldn't exist.
Splitting the cost of a meal into installments, we've crossed a dangerous line.
It's
desperation dressed up as
and this is, by the way, so when you see the stock market, oh, the stock market's going up. Remember this video. This is the reason why nobody gives a fuck about that. This is the reason why you get Luigi's. It is going to get so much worse. You guys haven't even seen it yet. It's going to be crazy.
This shift from discretionary to essential spending reveals BNPL's true nature. But who's paying for that? While you're feeling clever about splitting payments, retailers are bleeding money. Every BNPL transaction costs retailers 4 to 8% versus 1.5 to 3% for credit cards. Let me show you exactly what this means.
The retailers are still making money off of this. That's why they take the service. Don't ever think that the retailers are being taken advantage of, or for whatever reason, they're not getting something out of this. They obviously did a cost analysis for this, and it is still in their best interest because they can capitalize off of people who are bad with their own money. No, Walmart and Target are not victims. They are willing accomplices who sometimes get the short end of the stick, but when you measure up all the sticks together, the sticks are actually quite long.
$100 purchase at any store. With a credit card payment, the customer pays $100. The card processor takes a $2.50 fee, so the retailer receives $97.50. With BNPL, the fee is $6, so retailers receive $94. That $3.50 difference per transaction is massive. For businesses operating on 8 to 10% profit margins, BNPL fees can shrink profitability entirely.
You also have, so there's a selection bias with this as well, is that if you have a selection bias and you assume that the larger expenditures will on average be things that are not necessities, you can assume that more people will be buying those on credit as well. So this actually is even more extreme than you would assume. Because like many more people on average are going to be buying a TV on credit versus buying a carton of eggs on credit. for example.
Retailers legally cannot pass these fees to BNPL customers.
Yeah.
So what would they do? They would raise prices for everyone.
They do.
What if BNPL added to retail prices across the board? Cash customers are subsidizing BNPL users' shopping habits. But payment delays compound the damage. Credit card processors deposit funds within 24 to 48 hours. BNPL companies promise 3 to 5 business days, but frequently take longer. For small businesses managing tight cash flows, those delays can mean missing payroll or supplier payments. The Australian market gives us a preview of the coming collapse. When OpenPay failed in February 2023, they left behind $18.2 million in operating losses. Merchants who thought they'd been paid, they weren't. The money was gone. Laybuy's bankruptcy worse. 4,200 merchants
real bad,
and 766,000 customers
super
left
bad.
Scrambling. One craft store owner reported losing $790 on just one transaction. Multiply that across thousands of businesses. Kiwi Bank's $30 million exposure to Laybuy sent shockwaves through the financial system. This wasn't some small startup failing. This was systemic risk becoming reality. Unlike credit card processors backed by major banks with FDIC insurance and reserve requirements, BNPL companies offer zero merchant protection. When they fail, merchants eat the losses. And it's not hard to see why they're failing. Here's the dirty secret of BNPL. They lose money on every single transaction. Not sometimes, not on risky customers, every single transaction. Let me show you the math that's killing these companies. Klarna, the industry's largest player, just posted these numbers. Q1 2024 revenue of $621 million, but losses of $99 million.
Wow.
That more than doubled from last year. Their workforce has been slashed from 5,000 to 3,500 employees, with plans to cut down to 2,000.
I don't think that's necessarily indicative of their business. I think all companies are doing massive layoffs now. It's pretty normal.
Using AI. Their CEO admitted they need to fire 60% of their workforce just to approach profitability. That's not optimization. That's desperation. But here's why it's mathematically impossible for them to succeed. On a typical $100 BNPL transaction, they collect a $6 merchant fee. After paying 50 cents in processing costs, $1.50 for customer service, $2.40 for fraud and defaults at their 2.4% rate, and $2 for technology and overhead, they're left with a net loss of 40 cents. These businesses are money incinerators. The funding structure makes it even worse. BNPL companies borrow from institutional investors at 5 to 7% interest, then lend to consumers at 0%. During the easy money era, investors tolerated these losses because they believed in growth. But rising interest...
Well, they could also write them off. There's different ways that you can carry over losses and taxes, and you don't have to pay all of them back, and you don't have to fully commit to them. That's another big reason why. And you have companies that are doing this constantly. And so this is the real, and so that's really kind of, yeah, debt becomes an asset at that point, because then the asset is leveraged in order to, reduce your your tax responsibility, right? And I think that that's also something that happens, because if it was just a losing proposition, period, then the companies would never exist. There's a reason why they exist, and they exist inside of an apparatus of like 3 different levels of abusive game mechanics.
Borrowing at 7% to lend at 0% while eating 2.4% in defaults isn't a business model. It's a death spiral. The default rates hide an ugly truth. BNPL companies tout 2 to 3% default rates. These are measured on 6 to 8 week loans. If annualized, that would be catastrophic. Automatic payments mask true delinquency until users' bank accounts run dry. Users who can't pay get blocked from future purchases, creating hidden defaults.
And that also creates, again, you can see why banks are okay with this, because hidden defaults also mean that the company is now able to charge you an overdraft fee. And so now that you're paying a $35 overdraft fee, okay, well, now you're fucked. Like, so now you're making $35 more. How do you know so much shit? I don't know a lot about this. Like, this is, again, I'm not an expert in this. And the truth is that even a accountant is not an expert in the entire apparatus that these companies exist in. Like, there's probably about 30 people that work at these companies and, like, you know, at like max size, that are all very competent and intelligent, that all manage different parts of this apparatus that keep it together. Like, there's no one part of this. This is a massive ship.
Without interest income to offset losses, BNPL companies have only one option: grow or die. But growth is expensive. Customer acquisition costs run $25 to $40 per user.
Wow.
With average transactions of $135, they need multiple purchases just to break even on acquiring you.
I think that, like, there's also a degree, and like, he probably knows this, there's a lot of things that operate under this paradigm. You know, you have the Pareto principle, which is like the default of this, which is 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. And this can be applied to almost everything. I think the 80-20 rule is true in 90% of human life. But I think that especially with finances, it becomes even more extreme, where you have a very small subset of people that you are extracting a tremendous amount of money from, whereas everybody else you're not really getting a lot out of. So, like, for example, gacha games. Gacha games are kept alive by, I would say, the top 5% of the whales. But the whales need all of that plankton that exists inside of the ecosystem in order to survive, because you get rid of the plankton and then the whales die. And so anyway, there are a lot of things that function under this. Like, you can look at income disparity. You can look at, you know, any degree of this, like in video games. You can look at it in spending habits. It's true across the board.
Spiral has begun. To grow, they must approve more risky customers. More risky customers means higher defaults. Higher defaults mean bigger losses. Bigger losses mean more desperate measures. We've seen this movie before. Subprime mortgages in 2008.
Ooh,
payday loans.
remember that.
The pattern never changes.
It was in high school.
Easy credit, explosive growth,
it just
sudden
graduated.
Collapse. The free-for-all is over. Regulators have finally woken up to what BNPL really is: credit. And they're bringing the hammer down. But first, understand this. BNPL companies structured their products to dodge the 1968 Truth in Lending Act by keeping loans under certain thresholds.
It's just like, that's so obviously bad faith. It's so obvious. I don't know why people are putting up with this shit even for a second. The government subsidizes the subprime loans in the name of fairness. Markets don't just give away money to untrustworthy people. Well, so a lot of venture capitalist firms, you've had this strategy that's begun to recede, especially after, I would say, 2023, 2024 with COVID, and like you had a lot of like uncertain realities, like, for example, cryptocurrency or NFTs, and I think that basically a lot of these companies got burned by them. And a lot of these companies have the outlook of, we're going to take 100 shots, we're going to miss 99 of them, but out of the one shot that we hit, we're going to make $1,000, and each shot takes $100. So, like, the idea is that you are simply playing the odds, and that's why BlackRock is invested into everything. That's why Vanguard is invested into everything. Sequoia is invested into everything. Andreessen's invested into everything. All of these companies are connected, and the reason why is it's not because it's some massive Jew apparatus. It's simply because they want to have their hand in all the cookie jars in case a cookie pops up so they can grab it and eat it. It's that simple. You would do the same thing if you had that opportunity yourself. It's smart diversification. Yes, exactly.
Cards must disclose all costs up front. BNPL on the loophole. Less protection for you, more flexibility for them. That loophole is closing. 2024 marked the turning point. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau ruled BNPL must follow the same rules as credit cards. Full disclosure of all fees and terms. Standardized cost comparisons. Dispute resolution processes. Refund protection.
And you can see what happens, by the way. If you think they're not making money off of this, they were worth $45 billion, and now they're worth $14 billion.
For companies already money on every transaction, these compliance costs, estimated at $2 to $3 per transaction, are devastating. The crackdown is global. The UK now requires mandatory affordability checks before approval.
That's exactly what I said they should do. And as usual, it's always Europe that is ahead of this shit. Like, we have freedom of speech and we have guns. We're better than Europe. But with you guys and your regulations, you guys do it better than we do. Y'all are way ahead of us on this. This probably won't happen in the US for way longer.
Australia has fully integrated BNPL into their national credit code.
If only you had citizen
protection. The
protection.
Consumer Credit Directive now covers all BNPL services. The regulatory arbitrage that lets BNPL companies operate in the shadows, gone. Banks smell blood in the water. They're moving in for the kill. Chase launched My Chase Plan, BNPL using existing credit lines. American Express created Planet. Citi rolled out FlexPay.
And you can see, obviously, FlexPay, like, there's always these euphemisms that are used to convince stupid people that don't understand numbers to spend money and then effectively go into debt.
People tried Apple Pay Later, failed, then partnered with a firm. The bank's advantage.
Somebody says authoritarian lending regulations are bad. These economies are shrinking compared to ours. I think that you're making a really big mistake by measuring the success of an economy by the amount of wealth that the top 1% that is the beneficiary of that economy has managed to accrue. Because really, I think this is and I think this is a massive economic problem, and I think that it is a top-down problem that is being created, facilitated, a narrative that's being pushed by the media, because the media, it's in their best interest to do this. The fact is, the stock market does not necessarily mean it going up or anything like that. The economy going up, the GDP does not mean that you're better off. Like, let me go back and show you this, right? Was your life better in 2016 or in 2023? Were things more affordable, and was life more affordable in 2016 or in 2023? Everybody knows this to be true, that we're supposed to listen to this graph as if it's our God. If it's our God, then why does it keep lying to us? So these graphs are massively deceptive. After 2021, over 90% of the capital gains that were accrued by the top 1% of the population. So this entire recovery from the recession was absorbed almost entirely by the wealthy. It's really, like, I think people don't even understand. People don't understand how bad it is because they look at these graphs. This is like, Don Lemon. Well, like, look, the economy's doing better. And look at the graph. You look at the graph, it's going up. And then he's talking to some guy. He's like, well, if it's going up, then why can't I afford my rent? That's the problem. The economy for individuals sucks, but for the few rich that get super rich, it's not just rich get richer anymore. Well, I'll tell you this, right? Even this year, for me, I have almost made more money off of investments making me money than I have from my actual work. It's crazy. Same? Yeah, exactly. So once you reach a certain amount of wealth, it's like a fucking, it's like a scaling thing. Where, like, you start scaling way fucking harder. It's like, okay, it's like a fucking world buffs in Classic WoW. Like, if you're a warrior, you get crazy fucking scaling with it. If you're a druid, you're fucked. And so people don't understand this. And because of that, and a lot of people, and again, I think that people are, and this is a big conspiracy theory, I think that people are intentionally financially illiterate, and I think it's being done on purpose. Why is it that we learn about all of these weird, complex mathematical formulas, but people still can't understand compounding interest? It's not that Algebra 2 doesn't matter. Of course it matters. But statistics matters more. So if you've got to pick one, you need to go with statistics. And I think the reason why we're not going with it is because a lot of these companies know that if people understand the percentages, if they understand what the rates of return are, if they understand what an interest rate is, they might not be as willing to spend money. And those people, through abstraction and lobbying, have control over education. This is a conspiracy theory. but I think I'm right.
They have millions of existing customers and can borrow at near zero from depositors.
Makes sense. Yeah.
They operate with diversified revenue streams, decades of regulatory compliance, and profitable business models. Industry consolidation is accelerating exactly as predicted. Moody's warned, few BNPL companies will remain independent. They're being proven right. Square bought Afterpay for $29 billion, now worth far less. OpenPay went bankrupt. Laybuy collapsed. Others are desperately seeking buyers.
Because they existed inside of a regulatory gray area. And the moment that gray area was colored in, they can't exist anymore. I think that in general, if a company can exist only because of a regulatory gray area, that's probably a bullshit company.
The survivors are abandoning the pay-in-4 model entirely. Klarna pushes 6 to 24-month loans with interests. They're becoming exactly what they claimed to replace.
Yeah.
But if consumer BNPL fails, what about B2B BNPL? Businesses are now using buy now, pay later for inventory, equipment.
Everybody does this. Everybody's always done this. How many of you guys that work in any sort of a company, like you're buying things on credit? Everybody does this for different finances, for investment reasons. Yeah, I don't think this is a smoking gun. Yeah,
the volume exactly, is staggering.
Yeah. This
expected to hit
I don't think this is a big deal.
$669 billion by 2029. But when a consumer misses a payment on sneakers, they lose shoes. When a business can't pay for inventory it already sold, entire supply chains collapse. Imagine a retailer using BNPL to stock inventory, selling it, then the BNPL company fails before paying the supplier.
That's the problem, is the companies are unstable.
Doesn't get paid. The retailer can't restock. Customers can't buy. One BNPL failure could freeze entire industries. Within 24 months, the BNPL landscape will be unrecognizable. The survivors will be indistinguishable from the credit card companies they claim to disrupt. The revolution is over. Traditional credit won.
BNPL hasn't died. It's just simply been rolled into traditional credit. BNPL existed inside of a regulatory bubble. The bubble has now been popped, and instead of fixing the problem of people needing to buy burritos on credit, the companies that are making people have to buy burritos on credit are now giving the credit out for the burritos themselves. Yep.
Someone has to pay for all those split payments. The question is, who? When a BNPL company fails, here's what happens. Option 1, retailers eat the loss. This is what happened with OpenPay, Laybuy, and Genoa Pay. Retailers who thought they'd been paid discovered the money never arrived. $18.2 million in losses, 4,200 businesses affected, zero recourse. Unlike credit card processors—
See, this is the big issue too. It's that these companies never face any sort of like real accountability. It's the same problem like with Vishojo, for example. As far as I know, Gunrun hasn't been investigated by anyone. Nobody's talked about this. Nobody from any government regulatory agency has made a comment on it, on whether they're going to look into the problem or not. So you have people that effectively fuck over the lives of tons of other people, but because of the corporate veil, they are protected personally, and they're able to just continue doing it.
Backed by banks with FDIC insurance.
It's crazy.
BNPL companies offer no merchant protection. When they fail, retailers simply don't get paid for products already delivered. Option 2, debt gets sold to collections. The BNPL company's remaining assets, including your payment obligations, get sold to debt collectors for pennies on the dollar. You still owe the money, but now to aggressive collection agencies who add fees and damage credit scores. This is already happening. Failed BNPL companies' loan portfolios are being packaged and sold to the highest bidder. Option 3.
See, this is the bro. Whenever you're selling debt, bro, you know you're cooked. I'm sorry, but like that is a cooked fucking economy if you're selling debt.
Banks absorb and transform them. Square bought Afterpay. Banks are launching their own versions. When traditional finance absorbs BNPL, they add what was always missing: interest rates. Your pay-in-4 becomes a credit card with extra steps.
Pay-in 4.1.
New packaging, higher costs. Option 4, Emergency bailouts. When Kiwi Bank faced $30 million in exposure from Laybuy's collapse, it revealed the systemic risk. If enough retailers and banks are exposed, governments might intervene to prevent broader economic damage. But bailouts mean taxpayers foot the bill.
This is another thing too, is that taxpayers are subsidizing these companies' bad mistakes. Sorry, that's actually not true. They're not mistakes. They're tactical decisions, and they know that they know we will subsidize them, so they keep doing it. And you want to know why? Why does all of this happen? Because guess who helps write the tax code?
BNPL was never sustainable. It was a venture capital experiment in human psychology, subsidized by billions in investment money. For 5 years, investors paid for
I don't know if I completely agree with like that analysis, because very clearly it still works. That's why you just said that they've been absorbed. The companies that are absorbing them would not absorb this business practice if it didn't generate a profit. Oh.
The party's over. Traditional credit won. Or will this morph into a new kind of product we're not seeing coming? If you're interested in how tech is reshaping finance, maybe you've wondered what actually happens behind the scenes when you tap your card to buy your morning coffee. If so, have a look at this video.
This is an insanely fucking good video. How can someone say these companies are right? Well, here's the reason why you can say that they're right. It's because individual consumers and adults should be able to enter into contracts that they opt into. But I think that the problem there is that it's just simply not on even ground. That's the reason why. And so you can take a libertarian perspective and say that because these people are doing something, yeah, give them a sub. This is great.